Hello, everyone. I'm Ronan Unchained, and this is the Mandalorian Season 2 finale and overall review thoughts discussion. I invited my good friend Logan from Star Wars Doctrine to chime in and give me his thoughts as well. How you doing, man?
Good, good. Happy to be here.
So, Logan, what did you think of the finale so far?
Um, man, I I was just thrilled with the finale. I guess all the things that they covered, it was so cool. I mean, there was times where I was thinking it would go one way and it totally went a different way. It
Right.
was it was unexpected. It was good. It's fantastic, I thought.
Yeah, I thought that um the first 10, 15 minutes were astounding. That were like we just jump right into it, and then I remember once we get to that planet where we pick up Bo and oh my gosh, Sasha Banks characters, which I'm
Ah,
uh, blanking on.
Casca.
There you go. Thank you, man. But the minute we flew there and I saw the opening of a pipe, I'm like, oh no, don't tell me that's Star Killer Base. Don't tell me it looks similar to it. And
Right,
then we pass it and there's other tubes, and then we see there's two forks like things popping up, and like I've seen that design before. And we go down and then we see Bo's Death Watch Mandalorian ship. I'm like, oh my gosh, they actually put that in. That's so good.
right. That was
Um,
absolutely insane. I was
yeah,
like,
we're spoiled, man.
no,
we
yeah, no,
don't deserve
this
this show.
this show's been just absolutely amazing.
And I think that we'll do Bo Dark Saber sequence, then we'll do Luke, and then we'll talk about Din and Grogu. I think that a lot of people were like, "Well, what? We didn't get the Dark Saber uh, arc resolved. What does that mean?" And I
Right.
always thought that the minute they presented Bo-Katan and her Night Owls,
Mhm.
that season three at least would be the revolution. The Mandalore
Okay.
revolution has begun, and that would be when we would fully wrap up the arc of the Dark Saber. And the fact that yes, Moff Gideon fights Din, he loses to Din,
Mhm.
he is alive, and that sequence was great for people who don't know much of the lore. But for us,
Right.
it's like, all right, we know the rules. But
Mhm.
and I don't know about you, but I think you caught up to it as well. That we were both, at least for me, I was just like, wait a minute, but he is right. But if my memory serves right, in Rebels, Sabine
Mhm.
found the dark saber and gave it to you. Now
Yep.
that could be the exception where it's like it wasn't in Combat One, that it was just found because
Right.
Darth Maul lost it after the events of the Siege of Mandalore, I suppose. But that the first time you wielded it, you didn't fight for that. So
Yeah.
that's the great juxtaposition that I'm so anxious to get into season three, where it's like, all right, these two people, they respect each other in Din and
Right.
Bo's scenario, but and he clearly doesn't want the saber. He
Mhm.
says, I love that line. I yield, take it.
Right.
And it's her, and it's fascinating because she calls him out on being a children of the Watch, which is zealots who want to honor or keep stuff from the past of Mandalorian ways, and yet she wants to keep that certain rule of the dark saber from the
Right.
past, which is good irony on it. I don't know. What did you think about that?
Actually, I think I just sent a meme to Cody about that, but no, I thought it was interesting. I guess a huge thing with just like the dark saber in general is just the fact that it's so symbolic in its power, right? Because obviously holding the dark saber, is cool. It's a lightsaber. Lightsabers are awesome, but at the same point, it doesn't mean anything. But it has a lot of like that notion of Excalibur and like King Arthurian legends, where pull the
Value,
sword from the
yes.
stone, whatever, right?
Yeah,
Lady of the Lake gives it to you. You're worthy and the rightful leader
yeah.
of Camelot. So like, I think it all comes down to, I don't know, it's weird because like, right, Sabine was first like, hey, here, take the saber, and she's like, no, I don't want it. But by the end of the episode, she's like, all right, cool, it's mine. I'm the leader. Woohoo, yippee me.
Yeah.
But this time she's all like obsessed with the Lord. But I wonder if part of that could have to do with obviously something happens in between Rebels and this,
The Purge, yes.
right? So there's some purge that happens. So I'm wondering if maybe her not being able to like lay claim saying like I maybe people know she lost it in combat or something to Moff Gideon or however that all works out. So maybe
Right.
she really wants to be able to say, no, I took it rightfully and is trying to really expand on the lore to make really capitalize on like the lore behind the dark saber to really assert her claim to Mandalore and maybe make it stick this time.
Yes.
So maybe that's her concern, but either way, it's going to be interesting and obviously going to be a huge part of season 3. That being pretty much the only loose end, I guess you would say, from the season finale.
And I think it's go back to Moff Gideon's line that the saber has no power, but the stories do, and people will
Right, that was a
just
good
see
line.
as just another pretender and whatnot. And that's the cool thing that I dug, and I was thinking to I told my brother that I saw Steven Soderbergh's film Che about Che Guevara, the revolutionary, and I used to consider a marksman and all that. And I thought about that with Bo because she started off as a death watch, just full on, very terrorist vibe
Mm-hmm.
about making chaos at whatever the cost, and yet battles went through. She didn't see eye to eye with her sister. She lost her sister. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
that twisted something in her head. She survived Order 66 and the Purge at that time, all that stuff. And it's fascinating that I see moments of the Bo-Katan I first met in Rebels, because irony, I saw Rebels before I saw Clone Wars. But I see bits of the Bo-Katan I saw in Rebels, and then
Mm-hmm.
I also see the very fierce warrior that first met of
Right.
Bo in Clone Wars in the beginning, and then up to the way we see her in Siege of Mandalore, which I tell my friends that there's that great line that partly people don't give credit to both Dave Filoni and Katie Sackhoff, that it's the Siege of Mandalore has won.
Mm-hmm.
They've won. There's all people are being lined up. Gar Saxon and his traitors, and she just tells Ahsoka, "I never understood my sister's ways, but I wish I knew I wish I knew something else or anything else other than war." And I feel that that's gonna play a big factor when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
who takes the throne, to the Mandalorian throne and Mandalore and whatnot. Leaving off that time, now we go to the Jedi.
Right.
I'm still in shock of that. Um, if you
For
care
sure.
to see how still I'm devastated, still shocked, I might go back and watch the reaction because I flipped for like 10 minutes. You hear this stuff, Logan. You hear this stuff, but you don't believe it. And I think from what I saw or heard, a lot of people, we were all in denial, happy denial. Each
Mm-hmm.
phase, it was the X-wing passing
No,
by.
exactly.
It
Yeah,
was
no, we saw the X-Wing and you're like, no.
the
You even
X-wing
see like him
doctrine.
in a hooded figure, you're like, no.
No,
I've seen his green lightsaber, I'm like, no, it's not possible. They didn't really do that to us.
right?
But they did, and it was fantastic. It was so well done.
Oh man. I seen the episode so far 3 times. I still really love it.
Mm-hmm.
The CG thing is a little rough, and it did take me out a bit because I was confused the minute we see his face. I'm like, wait, is that Sebastian Stan CG to be Mark Hamill from 1983, or what was the deal?
Right.
And uh it's not the greatest CG, but it does. I think the moments leading up to the face reveal holds more strength to it, and I personally thought that what Pedro Pascal does and what the people who do the robotics for Grogu, what
Mm-hmm.
they do after that, and his lines, Grogu touching his helmet, he removing it
Mm-hmm.
off. I think that, not, I'm not gonna say saved it, but that brought it back to like, oh, we were in this high, and it did just a little bit because I was confused of that CG phase, but him just taking that helmet off, I think that was,
Mm-hmm.
I freaked out for Luke appearing in this episode. I
Right.
cried for when he took the face the mask off, and I knew what that meant, dude.
For
And I
sure.
think I
Yeah, no,
saw a
that
lot of
was
people
crazy.
were still in shock, man. But what do you think about that sequence?
Yeah, no, I think the removal of the helmet was very special.
Yes,
I
and
mean,
earned.
yeah, definitely earned. But I think it's also just kind of a bigger step for even Mando or Din Djarin on his kind of path towards maybe helping out Bo-Katan and kind of maybe aligning himself with them and not more of the religious zealots that he grew up with, right?
The one way, yeah.
So I think to me that was where I was at. I was like, wow, this is like a big step, and I wonder how this is going to go for his character. Because I mean, I feel like a lot of people have always been saying, yeah, he's going to remove his helmet to save Baby Yoda. Yeah, he's going to take his helmet off to do something for Grogu. Like that's kind of always been an established thought process. And I mean, we even saw him do it last week when he took his helmet off because it was the only way to save the child. So I mean,
Right.
it wasn't. I think especially after that last episode, it wasn't like super surprising when he did it, but it still felt very special. Especially because it was the goodbye, right? So that was such a
Yes.
heartfelt moment and
Yes.
pretty brutal. But I think it was cool. I'm glad they did that because that was that was the objective, the goal of season 2 was to get Grogu to a Jedi, and I think most of us knew Ahsoka wouldn't work out.
Right. It would have been I think a cop out in my opinion. I felt that it's like, and maybe people would have wanted to stretch out to season 3. I'm like, no, the tighter the arcs, the better
Hmm.
and sweet and more emotional and heavy it will mean to us.
Right.
Yes, they are now went their own ways,
Hmm.
but we did follow them for 2 seasons, and that's more than 2 seasons we thought we would ever get with these with this show and with these characters.
Right.
Um, yeah, man, Pedro Pascal just, oh man,
He's done a
Latinos,
great
man, we're
job.
taking over Star Wars, man.
There you go. Yeah, you have Diego Luna, Pedro Pascal. I mean,
Oscar Isaac, Jimmy Smith.
Oscar
Oh,
Isaac. Yeah, I mean, everyone's just showing up.
what a finale, man. But now that we talked about the finale, compare the whole season to season 1, or how did you feel about overall from where we started in November to where we finish off this past Friday?
Just trying to look at the seasons and overall, I remember thinking that in season 1, I wanted every episode to be longer. But in
Right.
season 2, I really felt that I was like, man, I feel like these episodes are so short. But I actually went back and compared all the times, and they're pretty much within like 2 minutes of each other.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. But it was really interesting. I think this season felt maybe a lot more in depth in Star Wars lore than the first one. The first one was a really fun show. And I think
Yes.
this one still had a lot of fun parts. But the more you knew about Star Wars, maybe knowledge of Star Wars is more important, right? Because seeing Bo-Katan and the other Mandalorians was cool, but if you didn't watch Rebels or Clone Wars, you were kind of like, I don't really get why we're excited about it, right? And
Right.
Ahsoka, I mean, everyone has probably heard of Ahsoka, and if you haven't, she's still a super cool Jedi with white lightsabers who you've probably never seen that before, and that's awesome.
Correct. Yeah.
But there was so much about this season that was about kind of connecting Star Wars, which I thought they did so good at because you don't want to make everything like the Skywalker trilogy again, right?
Yes.
But at the same point, when you're dealing with certain aspects of Star Wars, for example, if you're dealing with Mandalorians, it's not surprising that the most famous Mandalorian of all, first guy we ever saw wearing Mandalorian armor, Boba Fett, shows up. That's not really weird.
No. Yeah.
And then it's also not weird that we would go to the person who should be the rightful leader of Mandalore, Bo-Katan, right?
Right.
And if you're dealing with a little baby Yoda dude who can use the Force, there's only so many people left that make sense. So my biggest concern was just that it'd be like, then it might be over the top.
Yeah.
But
It'd be too
it
much.
was very,
Yeah.
it felt natural and it made sense. Though there might have been maybe a little more fun if you really knew the Star Wars lore.
And I, from what I really like to watch Dave Filoni interviews or just talks about his work and what he's planning, what he thinks about, and how he sees things. Is that he always said it that there's never a no on things. That he's always open to everything if it makes sense for the story they're telling.
Right.
Like you said, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that we bump into Boba Fett, who's the most, he started this whole Mandalorian thing off in terms of
Right.
relevance in the universe. And then if we talked about the politics and the power struggle within between Mandalorians, Bo-Katan is the obvious one who's still alive. I was glad that they brought that up. They're like, oh, she lives past Rebels.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and it's just a juxtaposition that I think that this season was more juicy. And yes, it was more of like me being like, oh yeah, okay, so this game I played and this book I bought and this comic I read over and over again, they tied things
Right.
up. Okay, cool, that's extra points for me, but yet it leaves it up for fascinating talks with people who aren't used to it. And while doing all of that, you
Mm-hmm.
still get Mando and Grogu doing the adventures and then finishing off the mission. So
Right.
it was a cool thing that it was two parallel story arcs or two ways of telling these chapters in this season that still kept the story from season 1, while
Mm-hmm.
like a freeway taking turns and stopping by and passing through the universe, that galaxy, the galaxy that Star Wars has, and that's very rich. And that will be it for our discussion, guys. Logan, thanks so much for joining us. Tell the people where they
Sure.
can find you.
Yeah, we're just at Star Wars Doctrine. I run it with my buddy, and we're Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all those places. So come hang out with us, and we even stream Star Wars video games on Twitch pretty much most of the time.
Beautiful.
So
I will put their links in the description below. And you can find me, Ron and Shane, in Instagram, Twitter, and on YouTube. Also, I want to thank people who watched the reaction for the finale. That amount of views I've never gotten. I appreciate that, and hopefully it just continues on with Gallery and for other stuff I want to do for like WandaVision. And hopefully you come back, share, comment what you like and what your thoughts are about the show and the future of the show. This is the way.